The stars looked different this far from Earth. Jake Miller pressed his hand against the cold window of the Discovery and stared into the endless black. He had been in space for 3 months now, and still the sight made his heart race. Miller stopped daydreaming and checked the engine readings. Lieutenant Greg Palmer called from across the engineering bay. Jake turned away from the window and walked to his station. At 22 years old, he was the youngest person on the ship by 4 years. Fresh out of the academy, he had been lucky to get assigned to this mission. The Discovery was exploring the edges of known space, searching for new resources and possible colony sites. Engine temperature is normal, Jake reported, his eyes scanning the displays, all systems running smooth. Captain Helen Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system. All hands were approaching the nebula cluster. Sensors are picking up strange energy readings. Everyone stay alert. Jake felt a flutter of excitement in his chest. This was why he joined the exploration program. The possibility of finding something new, something no human had ever seen before. The ship moved slowly through space, its sensors reaching out into the darkness. Jake watched his screens carefully, noting every change in the energy patterns. Something was definitely out here. Something big. Captain, I'm getting unusual readings, called out Lisa Chen from the science station. There's a massive object ahead. It's not a planet or a star. Put it on screen, Captain Morrison ordered. The main display flickered to life, and everyone on the ship fell silent, hanging in space. Before them was a vessel so enormous it made the Discovery look like a child's toy. The alien ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull was silver and blue, covered in patterns that seemed to glow with their own light. My God, whispered Greg Palmer. That's not human. Captain Morrison's voice was steady despite the shock. Battle stations, defensive positions only. Do not fire unless fired upon. Jake's hands shook as he checked the engine systems. His training had prepared him for many things, but not this. Not actual aliens. Humanity had been searching for extraterrestrial life for centuries, and now they had found it, or rather it had found them. The alien ship moved closer. It was slow, deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. Then the comm system erupted with sound. It was a voice translated somehow into English. Human vessel, you prepare to receive the royal delegation. Resistance will result in your destruction. Captain Morrison looked at her crew, her face pale but determined. Open a channel. This is Captain Helen Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We come in peace. We request diplomatic conversation. Your request is irrelevant, the voice replied. The Queen of the Valoran Empire will board your vessel. You will comply. Before anyone could respond, a bright light filled the hangar bay. The crew rushed to the bay and found 6 figures standing there. They were tall, at least 7 feet high, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Silver markings covered their faces and arms, glowing softly in the ship's lights. The tallest figure stepped forward. She wore robes of deep purple, and a crown of crystals sat on her head. Her eyes were bright gold, and they swept across the humans with clear intelligence. I am Queen Ashira of the Valerian Empire, she said, her voice carrying authority that made everyone straighten their backs. We have observed your species. You are new to this region of space. Captain Morrison stepped forward, trying to keep her Voice calm, Your Majesty, we are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm to you or your empire. Queen Ashira nodded. Slowly, your intentions are noted. However, according to Valyrian law, when we encounter a new species, we must perform the ritual of understanding. We require the youngest member of your crew. The crew exchanged worried glances. Captain Morrison's jaw tightened. I don't understand. What do you mean require? The youngest among you will come with me, Queen Ashira said. Simply, this is our sacred custom. They will live among us, learn our ways, and teach us yours. When I declare the bond complete, they will be free to return. Absolutely not, Greg Palmer said. Stepping forward, you can't just take one of our people. The guards around Queen Ashira moved their hands to weapons at their belts. The tension in the room became thick enough to cut. Lieutenant, stand down, Captain Morrison ordered. She turned back to the Queen. Your Majesty, surely we can find another way. Some kind of cultural exchange that doesn't involve taking someone against their will. This is not a negotiation, Queen Ashira said, her golden eyes flashing. Our fleet surrounds your ship. You have no weapons that can harm us. You will comply or you will be destroyed, and we will take what we require from your remains. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He looked around at his crewmates, at the fear on their faces. He thought about his family back on Earth, about his little sister who had cried when he left for this mission. He thought about the crew who had become his friends. He stepped forward before he could change his mind. I'm the youngest, Jake said, his voice surprisingly steady. I'm 22, I'll go with you, Jake. No, Captain Morrison said sharply. It's okay, Captain, Jake said, meeting her eyes. If it stops people from dying, I'll do it, Queen Ashira studied him with those unsettling golden eyes. Then she smiled slightly, and Jake couldn't tell if it was warm or cold. You show courage, young human, she said. What is your name? Jake Miller, Your Majesty. Jake Miller, she repeated as if tasting the words. You will come with me now. The ritual begins immediately. She turned to Captain Morrison. You may inform your people of this. Tell them Jake Miller is under the protection of the Valyrian crown. No harm will come to him as long as he honors the bond. And how long will this bond take? Captain Morrison demanded. Queen Ashira tilted her head. As long as necessary, perhaps months, perhaps years. That depends on your Jake Miller. Before anyone could protest further, Queen Ashira placed her hand on Jake's shoulder. The touch was warm, almost burning. Come, young one, you are mine now. Let me show you wonders your people have never imagined. The light flared again, and Jake felt the sensation of falling and flying at the same time. When his vision cleared, he was no longer on the Discovery. He was standing in a massive chamber of silver and blue, surrounded by aliens, with Queen Ashira beside him. His new life had begun. The Valyrian flagship was like a floating city. Jake walked through corridors so wide that 20 people could stand side by side. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and everything was clean and pristine. Everywhere he looked, he saw Valorans going about their business, all of them stopping to stare at him. Try not to look so frightened, Queen Ashira said. Walking beside him, her guards followed. At a distance, you are a guest of honor, not a prisoner, a guest who can't leave, Jake muttered. The Queen's lips curved in something that might have been amusement. A guest who has not yet earned the right to leave. There is a difference. She led him to a vast chamber filled with hundreds of Valorans. The royal court. Jake realized with growing dread everyone was watching him. Some looked curious, others looked hostile, and a few looked hungry in a way that made Jake's skin crawl. People of Valoran, Queen Ashira announced, her voice carrying across the enormous space. I present to you Jake Miller, the youngest human who has come to fulfill the ritual of understanding. He will live among us and learn our ways. The crowd erupted in whispers. Jake tried to stand tall, but he felt like an insect under a microscope. Tall Valoran male stepped forward from the crowd. His silver markings were darker than the others, almost black, and his expression was cold. Your Majesty, with respect, this creature is hardly worthy of our attention. The humans are primitives. What can we possibly learn from them, Commander Drake? Your opinion is noted, Queen Ashira said coolly. However, I am still Queen, and this is still my decision. Drake bowed stiffly and stepped back, but his eyes remained on Jake with clear contempt. The Queen led Jake away from the court to a smaller chamber. You will stay here, she said, gesturing to a room that was larger than Jake's entire apartment. Back on Earth, a mentor will be assigned to you. She will teach you our language, our customs, and how to survive in our world. How long will I be here? Jake asked quietly. Queen Ashira studied him for a long moment. That depends entirely on you, Jake Miller. When I believe you truly understand us, and we truly understand humans, the bond will be complete. She left him alone in the enormous room. Jake sat on the edge of the bed, which was too big and too soft. He pulled out the small photo he kept in his pocket. His family smiling at the camera, his mother, his father, his little sister, Emma. They seemed like they were from another universe now. The door opened, and a Valyrian female entered. She was shorter than Queen Ashira, with bright silver markings that contrasted sharply with her blue skin. She moved like a fighter, all controlled power and grace. I am Kira, she said in heavily accented English. I am your mentor and your guard. Nice to meet you, Jake said. Standing up, Kira looked him up and down. You are small, weak. This will be difficult. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Confidence is earned, not given, Kira said. Come, your training begins now. The next few weeks were the hardest of Jake's life. Kira taught him the Valyrian language, which had sounds that hurt his throat to make. She taught him their customs, their history, their social structures. The Valoran Empire had existed for over 10,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds and hundreds of species. Why do you conquer? Jake asked one day during a lesson. Kira paused. Because we are superior. Because it is our destiny. But what if the species you conquer don't want to be conquered? Then they should have been stronger, Kira said simply. Jake learned to eat Valyrian food, which was bland and tasteless to his human palate. He learned to navigate the ship's complex layout. He learned which Valorans were friendly and which saw him as an insult to their empire. One day, a young Valoran female approached him in one of the common areas. She was beautiful by any standard, with silver markings that swirled across her face like art. You are the human, she said in perfect English. That's me, Jake said. Jake Miller. I am Vera, daughter of Queen Ashira, princess of the Valyrian Empire. She sat down across from him without asking. I wanted to meet you, my mother Speaks of you often, she does, she says. You ask many questions, Valorans do not. Question as humans do, we accept what is. Jake shrugged, maybe that's a problem. Vera's eyes widened slightly. You dare to suggest our way is flawed? I suggest that no way is perfect, Jake said carefully, even ours to his surprise. Vera smiled. I like you, Jake Miller, you are honest. Most beings lie to me because I am a princess. Over the following weeks, Vera became Jake's friend. She was curious about Earth, about human culture, about everything beyond the Valyrian Empire. She told him things that Kira never would have. Our people are dying, Vera said one evening, as they walked through an observation deck. Not from war or disease. Our birth rates have fallen for centuries. We have fewer children each generation. Why? Jake asked. No one knows. Some say it is because we have conquered everything. There is nothing left to strive for, nothing to fight for. We have become stagnant. Is that why your mother wanted me, the youngest human? Vera looked at him with those golden eyes. My mother believes that exposure to youth, to new ideas, might remind us what it means to be alive. You represent possibility, Jake, something we have not felt in a very long time. Back on the Discovery, Captain Morrison was fighting her own battle. She had sent messages to Earth Command, and the response had been clear. A diplomatic team was being assembled, but it would take 6 months to arrive. In the meantime, she was to avoid any action that might provoke the Valorans, but Greg Palmer and others in the crew wanted action now. They had a plan to extract Jake using information from an anonymous source about the Valyrian ship's defenses. We can't just leave him there, Greg argued during a command meeting. We can't start a war over one person, Captain Morris countered. Those ships could wipe us out in seconds, so we do nothing. We just wait and hope they give him back. We wait for reinforcements. That's an order, Lieutenant. Meanwhile, Jake was learning more than he expected. He discovered that not all Valorans supported their empire's ways. Young Valorans especially seemed restless, hungry for change, but afraid to speak up. He also discovered that Queen Ashira was under enormous pressure from her advisors. Some, like Commander Drake, saw humans as threats. Others saw them as potential resources to exploit. The Queen was walking a tightrope, trying to maintain her authority while preventing a crisis. One night, Jake woke to find Kira standing in his room. Get up, she said urgently, quietly. What's wrong? Commander Drake is moving against you. He has convinced some of the council that you are a spy. They are coming to imprison you. Jake's blood ran cold. What do I do? The princess has asked me to protect you. We must go to the Queen now. She is the only one who can stop this. Jake grabbed his jacket and followed Kira into the dark corridors. Behind them he could hear voices and footsteps. Drake's soldiers were coming. His time as a simple guest was over. The real danger had begun. Kira moved through the corridors like a shadow, and Jake struggled to keep up. Behind them, the sounds of Drake's soldiers grew louder. The Valyrian ship was a maze, but Kira knew every turn and passage. In here, she whispered, pulling Jake into a small maintenance room. They pressed against the wall as footsteps thundered past. Jake held his breath, his heart hammering so loud he was sure it would give them away. When the sounds faded, Kira checked the corridor and motioned for him to follow. Why is Drake doing this? Jake asked as They moved. Because he fears your people, Kira said. He sees humans as a threat to Valoran dominance. If he can prove you are a spy, he can justify attacking Earth, but I'm not a spy. Truth does not matter to men like Drake. Only power matters. They reached the royal chambers, but guards blocked the entrance. Kira approached them, speaking rapidly in Valoran. The guards looked uncertain. One of them shook his head. They say Commander Drake has ordered no one to see the Queen, Kira translated. Then we and LT Unk and GT LL have to make them let us through, Jake said, surprised by his own boldness. Before anyone could react, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Kira grabbed one of the guards by his arm. What is happening? Drake has seized the command deck, the guard said, his face pale. He has declared himself regent. He says the Queen is unfit to rule. Kira's expression hardened. This is treason. The guards looked at each other, then stepped aside. The Queen will need all her loyal warriors. Go. They rushed into the royal chambers and found chaos. Vera was there, along with several other Valorans who Jake recognized as the Queen's inner circle. Queen Ashira stood in the center, her face calm but her eyes blazing with fury. Your Majesty, Kira said, bowing quickly. Drake moves against you. I know, Ashira said. He has locked down the command deck and taken control of half the royal guard. He is broadcasting to the fleet that I have been corrupted by alien influence. She looked at Jake. He means you, young human. You have become the center of our civil war. Jake felt sick. I never wanted this. What we want and what we get are rarely the same, Ashira said. She turned to her advisors. We must retake the command deck before Drake fires on the human ship. Once he starts a war with Earth, there will be no going back. Mother, he has too many soldiers. Vera said, we cannot fight our way through. Then we will have to be clever, Ashira said. She looked at Jake. Tell me, do you understand the systems of this ship, the engineering, the technology? Jake thought about the past weeks, all the time he had spent studying Valoran technology, some of it. Yes, why? Because Drake is a soldier, not an engineer. He knows how to command warriors, but he does not know how ships truly work. Ashira smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Can you disable the security systems from here? Jake's mind raced. He had been studying the ship systems, learning how they operated. Maybe if I can access a terminal. Vera led him to a console in the corner of the room. Jake sat down and began working. The Valyrian interface was strange, but the logic beneath it was something he could follow. Engineering was engineering regardless of species. His fingers moved across the controls, searching for the security protocols. Sweat dripped down his back. If he made a mistake, he could lock them in or set off more alarms. There, he said finally, I've created a loop in the surveillance system. For the next 20 minutes, the cameras will show the same images over and over. Drake's people won't see us moving. Ashira placed her hand on his shoulder. Well done, Jake Miller. Perhaps there is more to humans than Drake believes. They moved through the ship like ghosts. Kira led the way with a group of loyal guards. They avoided the main corridors, using maintenance passages and cargo routes that Jake had mapped during his time on the ship. As they moved, Jake saw the reality of the conflict. They passed rooms where Valorans argued, some supporting Drake, others supporting the Queen. Families were divided, friends had become enemies. Jake realized that this tension had been building long before he arrived. He was just the spark that lit the fire. They reached a junction near the command deck. Kira held up her hand for them to stop. Drake has guards posted at every entrance. We cannot fight through without losses. Then we need a distraction, Jake said. Everyone looked at him. Drake wants me, right? He sees me as the symbol of everything wrong with the Queen's rule. What if I give him what he wants? Absolutely not. Vera said immediately. He will kill you. Not right away, Jake said. He'll want to make a show of it. Use me as proof that humans are dangerous. That gives us time. Ashira studied him with those golden eyes. You would risk your life for us, for people who took you from your home. Jake thought about Kira, who had become his teacher and friend, about Vera, who had shown him kindness when she didn't have to, about all the young Valorants he had met who dreamed of something more than endless conquest. You're not all bad, he said simply. And Drake would kill more than just me. If he starts a war, he'd kill millions of humans and Valorants both. The Queen was silent for a long moment, then she nodded. You have courage, Jake Miller, more than many warriors I have known. But I will not send you to Drake alone. We will give you a chance, but we must be ready to act the moment you create an opening. They formed a plan quickly. Drake would present himself at the command deck entrance, claiming he wanted to negotiate, while Drake was focused on him. Ashira and her forces would use the security system's blind spots to position themselves around the deck. Jake walked to the main entrance of the command deck, his legs shaking. The guards there pointed weapons at him. Immediately, I'm Jake Miller, he said, raising his hands. I want to speak with Commander Drake. The guards exchanged glances. One of them spoke into a communication device. A moment later, the doors opened. Jake walked into the command deck. It was enormous, filled with stations and displays showing the vastness of space. Drake stood in the center, surrounded by his officers. When he saw Jake, his lips curved into a cold smile. The human comes to me willingly, Drake said. How convenient. I came to make a deal, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Humans do not make deals with Valorants, Drake said. Humans obey or humans die. Then you're making a mistake, Jake said. Queen Ashira was right about us. We're not your enemies. We could be your allies. Drake walked closer. He was even taller than most Valorants, and his presence was intimidating. Allies, you are insects. Your technology is primitive. Your lifespans are brief. You have nothing we need. We have something you've lost. Jake said, we have the will to grow, to change, to become more than we are. You Valorants are dying because you've stopped evolving. You've conquered everything, and now you have nothing left to reach for. Drake's expression darkened. You dare lecture me about my people? I'm not lecturing. I'm offering you a truth you're afraid to hear. Jake took a breath. Kill me if you want. Start your war with Earth, but it won't save your people. It will just give them another distraction from the real problem. Drake raised his hand, and Jake knew he was about to give the order to fire. This was it. He had done what he could, but then Vera's voice rang out across the command deck. Enough, Drake. The princess stepped onto the deck, flanked by Kira and the royal guard. Behind them came Queen Ashira, her crown gleaming in the light. Drake spun around. How did you get in here? My human friend taught me something. Ashira said calmly. Sometimes the smallest person in the room can create the biggest changes. The standoff had begun. The command deck fell silent. Drake's officers stood frozen there, weapons halfway raised. Queen Ashira and LT Unk and GT guards had their weapons drawn as well. One wrong move and the room would explode into violence. Stand down, Drake, Queen Ashira commanded. This madness ends now. Drake's jaw clenched. The madness began when you allowed this alien creature to corrupt our ways. I am saving our people from your weakness by starting a war, by dividing our empire. Ashira shook her head. You call yourself a protector of Valoran, but you are destroying it from within. Jake stood very still, trying not to draw attention. He was caught between the two forces, and any sudden movement might trigger a bloodbath. He could see Drake's hand hovering near his weapon. Our people are dying, Drake said, his voice rising. Our birth rates fall every year. Our warriors grow soft. And what do? You bring in humans to teach us their primitive ways. You dishonor everything our ancestors built. Our ancestors built an empire, Vera said, stepping forward beside her mother. But empires that stop growing start dying. Jake is right. We have conquered everything, and now we have nothing left to strive for. Be silent, child, Drake snapped. You know nothing of leadership. I know more than you think, Vera said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands trembling slightly. I have spoken with the young warriors, with the scientists, with the people you ignore. They are tired of endless conquest. They want meaning, not just dominance. Drake turned to his officers. You see, the corruption spreads even to the royal family. We must act now or everything will be lost. But several of Drake's officers were lowering their weapons. They looked uncertain, shifting their weight from foot to foot. One of them, a veteran with dark silver markings, spoke up. Commander, perhaps we should hear the Queen out. Starting a civil war would kill more Valorans than any human ever could. Cole, you question me? Drake demanded. The veteran named Cole met Drake's gaze steadily. I question starting a war over one human. Yes, I have followed you for 20 years, Commander, but this feels wrong. Other officers murmured agreement. Jake could see Drake's support crumbling. The commander's face twisted with rage. Traitors, Drake hissed. All of you infected by alien weakness. He moved suddenly, faster than Jake thought possible. Drake's hand went at his weapon, pulling it free and aiming directly at Jake. If the human dies, the corruption dies with him. Kira dove in front of Jake, her own weapon coming up. The blast from Drake's weapon hit her in the shoulder, spinning her around. She fell hard, and Jake dropped to his knees beside her. Kira, the command deck erupted into chaos. Ashira's guards rushed forward. Drake's officers scattered, some joining the fight, others throwing down their weapons. Energy blasts lit up the room like lightning. Jake pressed his hands against Kira's wound. Blue blood seeped between his fingers. Her eyes were unfocused with pain. Stay with me, Jake said. Please stay with me. Foolish human, Kira whispered. I am your guard. It is my duty. You're my friend, Jake said fiercely. And friends don't let friends die. Vera appeared beside him, pulling medical supplies from a nearby station. Together they worked on Kira's wound. While the battle raged around them, Jake had learned some Valyrian first aid during his training, and he used every bit of it. Now across the deck, Queen Ashira faced Drake alone. The two of them moved in a deadly dance, weapons firing, bodies twisting to avoid blasts. Drake was younger and stronger, but Ashira was smarter and more experienced. "You cannot win this," Drake said. "Even if you defeat me, others will rise. Our people will never accept humans as equals." "Then I will teach them," Ashira said, "as I have been taught by a human who showed more courage in 2 months than you have shown in a lifetime." Drake roared and charged. Ashira sidestepped and struck him hard in the back with her weapon. Drake stumbled, but didn't fall. He spun and grabbed Ashira by the throat, lifting her off the ground. "I will break you," Drake said, "and then I will break every human in this galaxy." But he had forgotten about Jake. Jake had been watching the fight while tending to Kira. He saw Drake's focus narrow to just the Queen. Saw the opening. He grabbed Kira's fallen weapon, stood up and ran toward Drake. "Hey, ugly!" Jake shouted. Drake turned, surprise flashing across his face. That moment of distraction was all Ashira needed. She brought her knee up hard into Drake's stomach, and he released her. As he doubled over, Ashira struck him across the head with her weapon. Drake collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The fighting stopped immediately. Drake's remaining loyal officers saw their commander defeated and surrendered. Ashira's guards quickly secured them. Queen Ashira stood over Drake's body, breathing hard. Then she looked at Jake, who still held Kira's weapon in shaking hands. "You saved my life," Ashira said. "You saved mine first," Jake replied. He dropped the weapon and went back to Kira, who Vera was still tending. "She will live," Vera said, relief clear in her voice. "The wound is not as bad as it looks." Kira opened her eyes and looked at Jake. "Did we win?" "Yeah," Jake said, smiling despite the tears on his face. "We won." Ashira walked to the command chair and sat down. She activated the shipwide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor of the massive vessel. "People of Valoran, this is your queen." Commander Drake attempted to seize power through treachery and violence. He has been defeated. The crisis is over. She paused, looking at Jake. Drake claimed, "I was corrupted by human influence." "Perhaps I was influenced. I was influenced by courage, by honesty, by a young human who asked questions we were afraid to ask ourselves. He made me see that our empire has been dying not from outside threats but from our own fear of change." Ashira stood, her presence commanding even through the communication system. "From this day forward, humanity will be recognized as equals and potential allies. We will learn from them as they learn from us. This is not weakness, this is wisdom. And any who challenge this decision, challenge me directly." She ended the transmission. The command deck was silent except for the moans of the wounded. Cole, the veteran officer who had questioned Drake, approached the Queen and bowed. "Your Majesty, I apologize for my part in this. I should have spoken against Drake sooner." "You spoke when it mattered," Ashira said. "That is enough. Help secure the ship. Make sure all of Drake's supporters are identified and disarmed." Cole saluted and moved away. Medical teams arrived to tend to the wounded. They lifted Kira onto a stretcher, and Jake insisted on going with her to the medical bay. As they walked through the corridors, Valoran stared at Jake with new eyes. Some looked at him with respect, others with confusion. A few still looked hostile, but they kept their distance. In the medical bay, Jake sat beside Kira. While the doctors worked on her, Vera joined him, sitting in silence for a while. "You could have died today," she said finally. "So could you, so could Kira, so could everyone." Jake rubbed his face tiredly. "I just did what felt right. That is what makes you special." "Jake Miller," Vera said softly, "you did not calculate the odds or consider the politics. You simply did what was right." Hours passed. Drake was locked in the brig along with his most loyal followers. The ship slowly returned to normal operations. The crisis was over. But Jake knew the real work was just beginning. Queen Ashera would have to rebuild trust with her people. Earth and Valyrian would have to negotiate a real relationship, and Jake would have to decide what role he wanted to play in all of it. But for now, he just sat with Kira, holding her hand while she slept, grateful that they had all survived to see another day. 3 days after the battle, Jake stood in the royal chamber, facing Queen Ashera. Kira was there too, her arm in a healing wrap, but otherwise recovered. Vera stood beside her mother, and several members of the Valyrian council watched from the sides. "Jake Miller," Queen Ashera said formally, "the ritual of understanding is complete. You have learned our ways, and we have learned from yours. You are free to return to your people." Jake had known this moment was coming, but hearing the words still made his chest tight. "Just like that, the bond is fulfilled," Ashera said. "You came here as part of our sacred custom. You have honored that custom beyond what anyone expected. You helped prevent a civil war. You saved lives, including mine. The debt between us is paid." She stood and walked to Jake, pulling something from her robes. It was a pendant made of blue crystal, carved with silver patterns. "I name you Friend of the Crown," Ashera said, placing the pendant around Jake's neck. "You will always have a place in the Valyrian Empire. Our ships will recognize this symbol. Our people will know you are under royal protection." Jake touched the crystal. It was warm against his chest. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "The thanks are mine to give," Ashera said. "You showed us something we had forgot. That strength comes in many forms that youth and inexperience can sometimes see truths that age and wisdom miss." She returned to her throne. "Ship will take you back to the Discovery. Captain Morrison has been informed. Earth's diplomatic team will arrive in 4 months. Until then, we will maintain peaceful relations." Jake looked at Kira, who gave him a slight nod. He looked at Vera, who smiled but had tears in her eyes. He had spent 2 months with these people. They had become more than just aliens to him. They were friends. "What will happen to Drake?" Jake asked. "He will face trial," Ashera said. "His actions were treason, but he is still a respected warrior. The council will decide his fate. Many of his concerns were valid, even if his methods were not. We must address why so many followed him." "Your people are scared," Jake said. "They see their empire declining and don't know how to stop it." "And what would you suggest?" Young Human, one of the council members, asked, an older Valyrian with scars crossing his face. Jake took a breath. "Stop conquering and start building. Your empire is huge, but half of it hates you. The species you've conquered would rather die than help you. But if you gave them freedom, if you became partners instead of rulers, they might help you find the answers you need. Release our conquered territories." The council member scoffed. "That is madness." "Is it?" Jake challenged. "How much of your Resources go to controlling unwilling. Subject, how many warriors do you lose? Fighting rebellions, what if you used those resources to improve Valyrian lives instead? The council erupted in argument. Some thought Jake was insane. Others seemed intrigued. Ashira raised her hand for silence. These are questions for another day, she said, but they are questions worth asking. This is the gift Jake Miller has given us, not answers but the courage to question. An escort arrived to take Jake to the transport ship. He said goodbye to Kira. First, you taught me well, Jake said. You learned well, Kira replied. For a weak small human, they both smiled. Then to Jake's surprise, Kira pulled him into an embrace. Valorans rarely showed affection, especially to other species. It meant more than words could express. Vera walked with Jake to the transport bay. They didn't speak at first, just walked side by side through the corridors. Jake had come to know so well. Will you come back? Vera asked. Finally, your mother invited me to be an ambassador. Earth will probably want me to do it too. I'm the only human who really knows your people. That is not what I asked, Vera said. I asked if you will come back. Jake stopped walking and looked at her. In the past weeks he and Vera had spent hours talking about their worlds, their dreams, their hopes. She had shown him parts of the Valyrian Empire tourists never saw. He had told her about Earth's oceans and forests, things she had only read about. Yes. Jake said, I'll come back. Vera smiled, and it was like sunrise. Good, I have much more to show you and much more to learn about humans. They reached the transport bay. The small ship that would take Jake back to the Discovery waited there, its engines humming. The pilot, a young Valyrian named Marcus, saluted Jake with unexpected respect. Ready when you are. Friend of the crown, Marcus said. Jake turned back to Vera. Thank you for everything, for being my friend when you didn't have to be. You gave me hope. Jake Miller, Vera said. You showed me that change is possible. That is a gift beyond measure. She handed him a small device. This is a Valyrian communicator. It is keyed to my personal frequency. When you are ready to return, call me. I will make sure you are welcomed properly. Jake took the device and tucked it carefully into his pocket. Next to the photo of his family, I will. The transport ship rose smoothly from the bay and shot into space. Through the window, Jake watched the Valyrian flagship grow smaller. Somewhere in that massive vessel, Ashira was beginning the hard work of reforming an empire. Kira was training the next generation of warriors. Vera was learning how to lead her people into a new age, and Jake was going home. The Discovery came into view, small but familiar. Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. Captain Morrison's voice came over the comm. Welcome back, Jake. It's good to see you. It's good to be seen, Captain. Jake replied. The transport docked and Jake walked into the Discovery's bay. The entire crew was there waiting. When they saw him, they erupted in cheers. Greg Palmer was the first to reach him, pulling him into a rough hug. You crazy kid, Greg said. We thought we'd lost you. Takes more than aliens to get rid of me, Jake said, grinning. Captain Morrison approached. She looked older than Jake remembered, more tired. These months had been hard on her, too. Mission report, she asked. It's going to be a long one, Captain. I bet. Come on. Let's get you to medical first, then we'll debrief. She paused. Jake, what you did up there, preventing a war? Earning their respect, that's going to change everything between our species. I just tried to survive, Jake said. You did more than survive. You built a bridge. Morrison smiled. Earth Command wants you to lead the diplomatic mission. When it arrives, full ambassador status. They're even talking about fast-tracking you to special envoy. Jake looked out the window at the Valyrian ship in the distance. I'll do it, but I'll need time to prepare, to understand what I'm really getting into. You'll have 4 months. Use them well. The Discovery began the long journey back toward Earth. Jake spent the first few days eating human food, sleeping in his own bed, and answering countless questions from the crew. Everyone wanted to know about the Valorans, about the ship, about everything. But at night, alone in his quarters, Jake would take out the communicator Vera had given him. He would think about the Valyrian Empire, about its wonders and its flaws, about a queen trying to save her people, about a princess dreaming of a different future, about a warrior who had become his friend. 2 weeks into the journey, Jake activated the communicator. Vera's face appeared on the small screen, smiling. I wondered when you would call, she said. Couldn't help myself, Jake admitted. How are things complicated? The council argues every day about what to do next. Some want to continue as we always have. Others are pushing for the changes you suggested. Mother is trying to find a middle path. That's the hard part about change, Jake said. It's never easy. They talked for an hour, sharing news from their respective worlds. When they finally said goodbye, Jake felt better than he had in days. 4 months later, the Earth diplomatic team arrived in Valyrian space. Jake was with them, wearing his new ambassador uniform and carrying the weight of 2 worlds on his shoulders, but he didn't feel afraid anymore. The Valoran flagship came into view, and Jake saw it with new eyes. Not as a prison or a threat, but as a home. Away from home, the transport bay opened to receive them, and Jake saw familiar faces waiting. Kira fully healed and standing proud, Ashira regal and commanding, and Vera smiling like she had been counting the days until his return. Welcome back, Jake Miller, Queen, Ashira said as he stepped off the transport. Your quarters have been prepared. We have much work to do. Then let's an LT Unk and GT get started, Jake said. He had left Earth as the youngest crew member on an exploration ship. He had been taken by an alien queen who declared him hers. He had learned their ways, fought their battles, and helped prevent a war. Now he returned not as a prisoner or a guest, but as a bridge between 2 civilizations. The work would be hard. There would be setbacks and conflicts. Some Valorans would never accept humans, and some humans would never trust the Valorans. But standing there in that transport bay, surrounded by friends from 2 worlds, Jake Miller knew one thing for certain. This was where he was meant to be. His adventure was far from over.